don't?
No, because you're probably going to need a computer next time. Or you should be an email with that code, but we can mess with it after the meeting too, and see if we can get you in.
What am I supposed to verify?
You should get an email to your phone.
To my phone?
Or to your Outlook, or
I use Microsoft Indicator. I don't have Outlook
I
on
like
my
facial
phone.
recognition because it doesn't change. You know, I have 50 passwords and I can't remember, you know, and the password.
And I do different gyrations of.
Oh, yeah, and different devices and different this.
Everyone ready? Call the Tuesday, January 13th meeting of the Smithfield Planning Commission to order. If you all would rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first order of business is elections of chair and vice chair. Ms. Claire is going to oversee that.
Yes, thank you. As your first meeting, this is an organizational meeting. The first order of business is the election of a chairman. The floor is now open for nominations for a chairman.
I would like to make a nomination for Ms. Julia Hilligas to stay as chair.
And I second.
Any other nominations? The floor is closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, we now have a chairwoman. The next order of business is the nomination of vice chair. The floor is now open for nominations for a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Herb Bevan.
I'll second.
What did I do wrong?
Any other nominations? The floor is closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Thank you. We now have our chairwoman and vice chair.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Herb, congratulations, condolences,
yeah, thank you.
whichever
I gotta
you
talk
think
to Gigi.
is warranted, yeah.
I'll give you some pointers.
Okay, next up, we have a listing of our upcoming meetings and activities on our agenda. Tuesday, the 20th is Board of Historic and Architectural Review. That's meeting is at 6:30. Also on the 20th at 7:30, there's a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Was that canceled?
Yes, for January.
Okay, that's been canceled for January. And then on the 26th, we have Town Council Committee meetings. February 3rd is Town Council meeting. And you can join us again here on February the 10th for our next Planning Commission meeting. Item number 4 is public comments. Public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings. Do we have any signups? We have no signups. Anybody have a burning desire to talk to us this evening? Okay, moving right along. Planning Commission comments. Anything? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls?
I've got one. As I was out recovering last month, it reminded me that what we haven't done yet but said we were going to do a long time ago was recommend that town council give us the authority to participate and do so virtually. But we have actually never done anything to make a motion to take any action or to do anything to so request the council to do so. Thought maybe it'd be a nice time for us to maybe think about that and move something forward.
It's a great idea.
What's the protocol, Ms. Claire? Just say we would like to do it and they will enable us or
Yes.
decline that opportunity?
If that is the consensus of the Planning Commission, we will figure out the mechanism to go about that.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to request approval?
I don't think so, but if there is a motion,
I'll make a motion that we recommend the council that we get the authorization to participate in meetings virtually.
And I'll second that.
would you like me to call for the question?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6 is a public hearing, special use permit. Stephen Barrett is the applicant. Do we have a staff report, Ms. Claire?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking 3 special use permits under the provisions of 3 IC24 and 8G5. This would allow for 2 drive-throughs, one of which will have reduced stacking spaces. These SUPs will facilitate the construction of a 2,100 square foot restaurant with the drive-through window, and a second building with a 2,400 square foot restaurant with a pickup window, 1,555 square feet of retail, and 1,400 square feet of restaurant. Because the drive-through will feature a pickup window as opposed to a traditional drive-through, the applicants will have 5 stacking spaces as opposed to the required 10 stacking spaces in Article 8G5. These SUPs would enable 2 new drive-through eating establishments with the inclusion of a pickup window. It is not a by right use and does require SUPs. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of the application?
My name is Robert Jones, 18169 Mortgage Beach Road, Smithfield, Virginia. I'm one of the members of D&B Properties. We're the property owners. We are not the operators of this. I was told that Stonefield Engineering was going to be here this evening, but on behalf of Mr. Barrett in this process, but I just want to let you know that the owners of the property are here and support this
Do you want us to
application.
defer and come back if they arrive later?
That probably would be wise, and I can see if I can get hold of someone to see where they are. I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
All right. You want to go ahead and open the public hearing? Oh, yeah, we could still open the public hearing. It's a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up? We don't have anyone signed up. I will close the public hearing. So that part of the item is done. Okay. So we will,
So, a question, sorry, Julie?
yeah,
So, there's 3 SUPs, and we've got 2 drive-through windows. What's the third SUP?
The reduced stacking
Reduced stacking.
spaces,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
because it's not a traditional drive-up window, it's only going to be a pickup window. So they're only proposing 5 stacking spaces as opposed to the required 10 stacking spaces for a traditional drive-through with that ordering window.
Okay, I got that.
so it's like what currently exists at Anna's. It's just pick up.
Correct.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
just on the staff report on that, if we could clearly identify what the SUPs are and what we're voting for, particularly, I mean, I think most of the people in here have awareness, but the citizens, if you read this staff report, it's not clear at all what the SUPs are. So to make it more clear for ourselves, town council, and the citizens, it would be helpful to line item those things out, please.
Okay. The man of the hour is here, so you want to proceed with this item? Okay. If you would come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Absolutely. Sorry for the tardiness. My name is Reed Cooksey with Stonefield Engineering and Design. Address is 555 South Old Woodward, Suite 12L, Birmingham, Michigan. What you have before you today is we're seeking 3 special use permits for our property off of Vincent Crossing, 2 for the use and then 1 for a parking reduction. We are proposing to have a multi-tenant building with a pickup window, which will have 5 stacking spaces and then a standalone drive-through restaurant on the property. Happy to answer any questions about the project and anything else that may come up.
So the one with the traditional drive-through is a separate building.
Yes.
And then the second building has the pickup window and retail space.
That is correct, yes.
And it's that second building with the pickup window, you want to have 5 stacking spaces as opposed to 10 that we traditionally require.
That is correct. So again, like I said, with the pickup window, this is for a fast casual use. So it's you order the food via the app and you have a scheduled pickup time instead of having to park and enter the store. There's no menu boards. There's no ordering outside of the facility. It's strictly just so they can hand you the food out the window.
Okay.
So
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Chairwoman Hillegas, I have a
Yes, sir.
question. What are the proposed tenants for these buildings?
So the standalone drive-through, we're targeting a coffee user. It hasn't been finalized yet, but I think you guys can kind of make some assumptions with the brand that we're going with there. And then the pickup window is a fast casual burrito sales, and then we don't have anybody for the other two buildings yet. Those are the two anchors of the development.
Thank you.
What'd you say, fast casual what sales?
Burrito, Tex-Mex.
Oh, okay.
Can we make an assumption there?
You can make
that
an
it's like
assumption
one that
there
just
as
came to
well.
Suffolk?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I've got a couple,
Dr. Pope.
well, whatever. Just a couple of issues. I noticed on your plan, there's a couple of different signs on here. There's a sign, I guess it's going to be for the first building. It's right up beside Josephine's Crossing, right there. And then there's another sign that's going to sort of highlight on Route 10
Yes.
down. Is there not a way to merge all these signs, since this is going to ultimately be sort of one property, and just create one sign at one location as opposed to having multiple signs
Yeah.
coming down the highway?
Yeah, we haven't submitted for our signage permit yet, so that'll be a separate application to come through. It's definitely something we can consider. We're just showing those there because we are replatting into 3 parcels here, so we're showing those for just reference, but that is something we can consider.
Okay, then there's another sign behind the building. It says, proposed, let's see, what does it say? Proposed MOPUS signage. I don't know what that is, the architectural plans. It's on the multi-tenant building. It's kind of highlighted behind their building. You see it, it's behind number 2.
Oh, yeah, that's just on-site directional signage to, so people know where the pickup window is. That it's in tandem with the pavement markings as well.
Right. And do we know if this meets all the parking and requirements? So we've got plenty of parking spaces. Okay. My overall concern as we move forward with this is the trash dumpster location. I don't think that's ideal to put that on the main corner as you're going to enter these establishments. Is there any way to look at this site plan and to say, is there another spot for relocation on the multi-tenant building? On the other building, you have it up next to the building, at least somewhere in that location. Is it not possible to move this, get rid of those parking spaces and that MOPUS sign, and some kind of way to incorporate your trash pickup over there to get it off of the corner of Josephine and Vincent's Crossing?
It's definitely something we can look at. Again, we've got 3 frontages on that multi-tenant there, so it was kind of difficult to place it in a manner where the trash truck could pick it up and circulate the site, without having it internal up against the proposed property line there. We kind of, how we oriented it was trying to keep it as far away from the front of the building and Route 10 there, and kind of keep it in a manner that we can easily access it towards the rear of the actual buildings itself. But
You're going
that's
to
something.
access this property coming down Vincent's Crossing, and that's going to be right in your line of sight of all these buildings, and you're going to be looking at a trash enclosure there.
Yeah, we can definitely look at relocating it closer to the building internal to that pad.
And then on the single building over there, you're coming through the drive-through lane. Is there enough room to U-turn to come back out of that exit when you're exiting the building, you would then U-turn to the right? That median strip looks awfully narrow, and I don't know how many cars are going to try to U-turn there to come back out onto Vincent's Crossing versus coming across the parking lot, turning left. But it seems awfully congested in there. But is there enough room to U-turn a traditional vehicle in that?
Yeah,
Because I have a feeling people are going to want to U-turn there and get out of there. They're not going to deal with the traffic coming across the parking lots and all of that.
Yeah, we've run truck turning to, for a F-150 to be able to turn and get out of there. We don't expect much ingress traffic on that far entrance there, so it kind of pulls around through. But they can make the turn, and then that area isn't proposed to be curbed, so to assist with vehicle movements in that.
Proposed to be or not to be? I'm sorry.
It's not going to be curbed.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, if I may follow up. My concern is with safety as well. But you have a number of parking spaces, and I was concerned about the number of ADA spaces. Are they within the guidelines? Okay. The other thing is, I was concerned about the drive-through traffic with the bigger building, the 2,400-foot building,
Yes.
that drive-through there. I was concerned about the U-turns exiting that drive-through, or making a left, making a right out of there. But also, you have parking spaces across the roadway from that building that runs parallel to that drive-through, the pickup window. And if people are parking in there and becoming pedestrians and walking across this traffic, the 2 lanes and then the drive-through to get to the entrance of those buildings, have you considered the safety factor in that?
We have, and part of the pickup window model is that it's very staggered. Everybody gets a designated time to come there. So even the 5 stacking spaces we show is probably more than what we actually need. Generally it's 1 or 2 people because of the designated times. And because of that very methodical flow of traffic through there, customers that park there, shouldn't have any conflicts walking across. We do have a stop bar there. We can look at putting in some pavement markings or something to more delineate the path walking, across the parking lot to get to the fronts of the buildings.
Yes, I would appreciate that.
It's not really an issue, Mr. Bryan. The restaurant that currently has a similar pickup window, it's not an issue there. It's very safe there.
That's 3 lanes of alternate traffic in alternate directions. That's 3 lanes that pedestrians have to walk across from those parking spaces. I don't know why anybody would be concerned about that. At the very minimum, could you put a sign there where you have the do not enter? Could you put a sign there to remind drivers to look for pedestrians?
Yep, we can absolutely
do something like that?
Yeah, we can look at doing on-site signage. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the applicants?
Chairwoman Hillegas, one more question.
Yes, sir.
For that third lot, are there any plans for that in the future? What's the expectations that we can see with that?
The idea is to develop it and give it cross-access, similar to how these have. I know that the developer had somebody that was interested, a smaller tenant, but ultimately backed out. There's currently no plans to develop it, but they would like to eventually put a building on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Chairwoman Hillegas, a
Yes, sir.
follow-up to that. There's an access point from Food Lion into Vincent Crossing. Is that going to be updated?
It's not.
It's
an
not real.
access. It's a dead end.
Well, you're doing quite a bit on the road, right? Yes, with the curbing and
No, not on the roadway. No.
not on the roadway.
We're just putting in some curb cuts on the existing,
Just some curb cuts.
yeah, just on the existing kind of dead-end cul-de-sac there.
Okay. Okay, I guess that's something to come up with the future tenant applicant. Okay, thank you.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Do we have a motion? We had a public hearing while you were in the hallway, so we're good. No one signed it.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the special use permits to move forward, so they can decide how they're going to proceed. I'm assuming that's what this is for.
That's correct.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend to town council for approval of the special use permits as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Call for the question, please.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hillegas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Really Really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
guys' time, and again, sorry for the tardiness.
Not a problem. Go forth, do good, bring us
Yep,
some
we're very excited to be here.
good
in Smithfield.
establishments. We're
Yeah.
excited. Thanks, guys. Next item up is Eco Review, 1229 Bench Church Boulevard. Ashley Ballard is the applicant. Do we have staff report?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking ECO review and approval for the removal of the existing wheel stops and the installation of brown bronze parking bollards. The parking lot alterations are to ensure the building and customer safety. There is no additional site and/or building work to be done. I did speak with the applicant, and he informed me this is a multiple year-long process across over 14,000 stores, where these are going to match the trim on the 7-Eleven along with the dumpster enclosure. Thank you.
Okay. Doesn't look like there's anyone here to speak on behalf of the application. Any discussion?
Chairwoman Hill, I guys have one question.
Yes, sir.
So it says on the staff report, town staff would issue a zoning permit waiver. What is being waived exactly?
It's just, we don't issue anything for this, but we just need some sort of documentation that this work was done. So it's nothing that's actually being waived besides per se a zoning permit, because we would not permit this as it's a safety issue. But we do want to maintain documentation that they've installed these at this particular date in case we ever need to go back and look at it.
Is there a cost to them for that?
There's not.
Okay.
And of course, the installation is by town standards. Yes.
Correct. They still have to follow town standards and building codes.
Okay.
Other questions or discussion on this item? Do we have a motion?
This is an approval, not a recommendation, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So I make a motion that we approve as presented.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Ms. Clerk, call for the question, please.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilliard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Item number 8 is another eco review, 1005 South Church Street. Andrews Roofing Company, care of Jerry Ely, is the applicant. Is there a staff report?
Yes, thank you. This is entrance corridor overlay review and approval for the replacement of the 3-tab shingles with Landmark Series Certainteed architectural shingles, including the replacement of the rubber membranes on the 2 flat roofs in a like manner. The color will be either Georgetown gray or charcoal black. We were able to determine that Georgetown gray is the preferred color that they would like to use. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion about this application?
Certainly will make the building look better, won't it?
Yes. And this, their product line's going to change somewhat there, correct?
Correct.
Do you have information on that?
I believe it's like a 5 Forks Deli and Smoothie that they are looking to open.
Okay.
Also an improvement.
Yes.
Could you repeat that comment? Chairwoman Hill, yes, I didn't quite hear it. I didn't quite
It's no longer going to be a vape shop. It's going to be a smoothie and deli
Okay.
operation.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion about this item? Do we have a motion for approval?
Yes, I make a recommendation, we approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Call for the question, please.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilliard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yo. Item number 9 is a discussion item about the land use matrix regarding residential zoning. Ms. Clary, let's see.
Yes, thank you. So if you remember from last month, we had finalized that land use matrix. What we decided to do was provide you with draft language taken out of that matrix into our residential zoning district. So what we did is we gave you the proposed based upon that matrix, and then we also gave you the permitted uses and the special permit use items that currently exist. Again, this is for community conservation, NR, SR, AR, MFR, our downtown, mobile home park, So we wanted to split it off so that we could focus just on the residential tonight. I also will add, there was one error in the attached residential because attached residential got listed twice under the permitted uses, and then again as a special use permit item. It was not supposed to be listed there. Thank you.
So which one are we focusing on tonight?
This is just all of our residential zoning districts.
Okay.
We separated the residential from the commercial, and the draft is what we finalized on that land use matrix that we provided. This is what it would look like in the zoning ordinance,
Right.
divided into those permitted uses and special use permit items.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Hilligas, I have
Yes, sir.
a couple questions and thoughts on this. So first, I apologize for missing last month. My granddaughter was born several weeks early, and I made a rapid trip out of town.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I did listen to the meeting and watch the YouTube video, read the minutes, and been thinking about this land use matrix and listening to the discussion on special use permits and working through comments with the council on the first meeting of the year as well that we had last week. And I have some real broad, large concerns about this, specifically that what seemed to start out as a little update, you know, to our zoning, cleaning up some problem areas, and now we are what it seems to be rewriting our zoning. There's a push to put SUPs across every category, and in this we have no citizens here. We have the opportunity for citizen involvement, but I don't think our citizens perhaps understand, and I'm not really sure I even understand really what the objectives of this project are anymore, because it's grown so large. But you know, I don't think that our citizens may not understand that this is an opportunity to interact on a significant change to our zoning laws. So significant, in fact, that perhaps we should try to solicit some citizen involvement. And if we're really going to do a large revamping and make drastic changes, maybe we should get a consultant involved and actually, because I fear that we're going to find ourselves getting this to the town council in a very difficult to manage what's changed and what hasn't. And there's no, when you look at the red line zoning documents and everything is redlined, much like we had at a recent meeting, it became really hard to digest. And then finally, what I would say about it is, when we talk about SUPs and making everything possible waiverable, I would ask this body to ensure that they're making decisions that are the will of the people. Every data point we have since the last revision of the comprehensive plan said slow residential growth, manage residential growth. Just this week in the Smithfield Times, there was a survey conducted. They had about 300 respondents, it looked like. 52.51%, 140 of the voters said slow the pace of residential growth. The next category, next highest category, was only at 16%, and that was lower taxes, which is usually at the forefront of everybody's mind when it comes to town government property taxes. But the top performer by a factor of 3, more than a factor of 3, is slow the pace of residential growth. The lowest vote getter was other, got 2 votes, but the next lowest was more residential growth at 3 votes. So if you look at, that's not a scientific poll, obviously, but if you look at that, you look at the data that the county collected for the survey data that they collected that included the town of Smithfield, for the study that they had performed on growth that demonstrated that growth was outpacing tax revenue and was going to cause taxes to go up. The consensus in that report was slow residential growth. You look back to the comprehensive plan and the citizen input on the comprehensive plan, the consensus was slow residential growth. So I think it's it would kind of fly in the face of all of those data points. And, you can look on social media too, and I recognize several, folks from social media. There is no end of responses on social media for every time a growth discussion happens there to slow residential growth. So while as individuals it might be preferred to have control and to raise the limits and allow denser residential growth, the 9,000, almost 10,000 people of the town of Smithfield spoke in the last election, and every time that they do speak about residential growth, they say slow and manage residential growth. So I think it would behoove us, and I appreciate the hard work that the planning staff has done, but with this project has gone from updating some things to a wholesale revision, it appears, with, again, no citizen involvement, no outside assistance, and what sounds like many motions that are contrary to the will of the citizens. So I would just encourage this body to revisit what we know the citizens have said in every opportunity to comment that they've had, and keep those thoughts in mind, that the citizens want us to slow and manage residential growth. That's all I have. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mr. Carter. Just point of clarification on process. This is a discussion item tonight, but it will go to a public hearing, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct.
Okay. So there will be opportunity for citizen involvement at that point.
Yes, Ms. Hilligas, and I understand that, but let's take the comprehensive plan as an example, right? We didn't have a public hearing and give the citizens one opportunity to show up and speak. We had info sessions, we had input opportunities, we had town halls, we had multiple avenues, electronic, in person, various ways for them to comment. And the comprehensive plan is a guideline. This is the law, and we're changing the law. And I do feel that we would do a better service to our citizens with a more interactive process for such a comprehensive change as we're discussing.
So what would you propose that involvement to look like, sir?
Well, if we want to do such a large wholesale change, and what I mean is such a change that it's so hard to, that it's such a drastic change that you can't differentiate the new from the old, it may be appropriate to involve a consultant so we can track all of our changes. It may be appropriate to identify some goals and objectives of what we're actually trying to do. The last time I asked what the objective was, it was to update some things in the zoning law. So, if we're making decisions on density, we're making decisions on special use permits, we're making decisions on wavering every possible thing in every bit of our zoning laws, and we're doing it just with the expertise in this room, I think, and with no effort at citizen outreach, I think we may be doing an injustice.
Is there money in your budget for that, for a consultant effort?
Absolutely not. I do know that it has gone up tremendously, speaking with other localities that are going through, especially updating their comprehensive plan, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Well, as it relates to the budget, I will say that we have quite a large 170% times our operating revenue, our operating costs for the year. So we do have money in the budget for research. We have money in the budget for consulting. We have to ask for money. And as I spoke about last year, that I would be happy to champion asking for money, asking for a budget for this body to get money for us to get answers to questions that we have that we don't have a technical expert for. So I would counter that at this time, the planning staff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Clary, has zero budget. I have talked to the town manager about creating budget for the planning commission specifically, such that we could author growth studies and things like that, or hire a consultant to help us. So it's not that there's not budget. There currently is not budget, but we have not asked for budget.
Right, it's not allocated.
So we would have to request funds, but funds are there. Make no mistake,
Okay.
there are funds there.
Okay. So I guess the question for this body is if Councilman Cutler would be willing to be the champion, is this something you all would like to pursue?
If I may, I add some comments. Well, first of all, it is somewhat murky about how this started in the first place. I'm not quite certain what was the motivation behind the request for all these waivers. Could you remind us, please?
So this started as a way of streamlining our uses. We noticed that over time, what has happened is we had piecemealed items in different zoning districts. So we created that land use matrix that outlined all of our uses. And the idea was, let's take 380 uses and let's trim them down into exactly what we want to see across, so that there's not minor nuances between the uses. Instead of dealing with 380 uses across all of these zoning districts, we're now down, I believe it's to 180. We were able to consolidate a lot. And so that's what you're seeing is this is that land use matrix for the residential zoning districts, but it's typed out in the permitted uses and the special use permits. Nothing has changed from the matrix. It's still the same. This is just what it would look like for the planning commissioners in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yes, but it's still with waivers all across the board. There is something concerning about that. I went back and looked at some of the ordinances, and there are waivers, there are waivers in many of them already. And I've noticed that there's something like, there might be 1, there might be 3, there might be 5 waivers in these ordinances. But what we're doing now with this is adding as many as 8 waivers to all of the ordinances. And that seems to be undermining the intent of the ordinances. We have some control with what they are. And the results of that, we all agree that things are fine. The town is fine. We're working with the ordinances as they were. Now, all these waivers, what does that open us up to? And it's like, what's the impact on a zone when you add a bunch of waivers?
But we have the ability to not approve those waivers. And I see it as giving landowners the ability to do something with their land that doesn't quite fit into a certain category or a certain use. So they want to do X, Y, Z with a little tweak to it. That's what I see as being waivers or special use permits. I see having no special use permits as being quite the document of either you can or you can't, and there's nowhere in between.
Yes. But as I said, there are waivers in these ordinances already. They might be limited, but there are waivers. And then Article 6, that governs special use permits. I think any applicant can find some relief in that for whatever they come up with. But to just add blanket waivers to everything, where is the limit to whatever applicant creativity ends? Where's the limit? We'll be considering anything and all sorts of things. And that just doesn't make,
Can you
it's
tell
not
me
just
where
logical.
the waivers are that are just all the permitted waivers? I'm not seeing it quite like you, I guess. I see the uses permitted by special use permit. Yes, and there's waivers for
There's waivers in the
uses
list.
permitted by special use permit. All of that's under the special use permit. It's not actually up in the permitted uses. We have permitted uses, and maybe I'm just looking at this wrong, but then we have the uses permitted by special use permit, and within those numbers, that's where there are waivers that are available.
Yes.
Not God-given, but available.
Yes.
How many waivers
That's
are
it.
right there that are across the board? Is it 5 or 8?
8.
Okay.
And again, the current ordinances have a number of waivers in each one of them. And now we're making it unlimited.
And it's not unlimited. It's
That's what it
the
appears to
point.
be.
The point of the exercise was to standardize and give the opportunities for land use across all of the various zones, so that you didn't have these 3 waivers available in this zone, but not available in these other 5 zones. It's basically taking the land use map, and it, like she said, there were 300 and however many different special uses, ordinances, waivers, everything, all of those different things that were called out in the old ordinance. All we did, and this is what we did over the last 6 months, is took all of those different ones and said, these 8 different things can all be summarized as this one title. And we got rid of the 8 and summarized it as one. And then we standardized what was available across all of the different zones, so that why can I get a waiver of setback in residential, multifamily, but not in residential this way? We standardized what was available across all of the ordinances and consolidated the definitions of the various uses. But we didn't go into the zoning ordinance and change the size of the lots, change the setbacks, change any of that stuff. We didn't do any of that. This is just a consolidation of definitions of uses and the standardizing of the language available and the options available across all the various zonings. But we didn't change anything in the law and the size and so like I said, when it comes back to the public's concern, okay, if the public's want to go change any of that stuff.
You're saying
okay,
you're not
we're
changing,
concerned.
but you're adding a bunch of waivers to each ordinance.
Which
That's not a
does-
change?
it gives somebody the opportunity to request something different than what's in the ordinance. But that we haven't
I think
changed
the ordinance, the way the ordinances are done, they're done with consideration for that particular zone and the zones that surround it.
That's correct.
You don't want something for this zone that might be a negative impact on a neighboring zone. I mean,
As I understand it, and I could be wrong, but the waivers, I'm not sure there's a difference between a waiver and a special use permit. And maybe there is, but a waiver is not automatically granted on any of this. I mean, if you want to waive district size or something like that, it has to come here. So the waiver is not a free pass. The waiver is, here's a list of things that need to come for planning commission. And so if I'm like Tom, I think it gives you a lot of flexibility to have, there's a lot of stuff in there, but I think it gives you flexibility to say, well, it's 30 feet, it's 31 feet instead of 30 feet, in that area down the hill, whatever. But just because it's a waiver doesn't mean you're automatically going to get it. To me, it's terminology. I'm not sure why some of them are called waivers and some are called, requiring a special use permit, but to me, they're the same thing. And is that wrong?
That is correct. It's a special use permit because you're waiving the requirements in the setbacks. If you can't meet them, then you need a waiver in order to encroach into those setbacks.
Right, but
for
any of
example.
these, you could say a waiver of home occupations, or, everything in that's, we just put waiver on the last 8, but all of them, technically, to my understanding, all of them are waivers. They're asking for permission to do something different by means of a special use permit, and we speak to that.
Correct. We could call it reduced district size, for example, instead of using the term waiver.
It's a little confusing to me, when you separate them that way, sort of, but I'm new.
But I don't think it's fair that one ordinance has a waiver for this, and you're thinking, well, why wouldn't it be that in community conservation? Why can't you get a waiver for that somewhere else? You need consistency across the board. Either you're going to grant them a waiver across the board, across all 8 categories, or you're not. And so we elected to maintain the control, because that's the only way we have control, is when they deviate. and then we can say we're either for or against something like this. And so it's about consistency across the board, and we're
Right, and
not
I just-
consistent.
I take a little issue with your terminology. We're not granting them the waiver, we're granting them the
To
opportunity
detail.
to ask for a
Okay.
waiver.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, nothing's guaranteed.
Which is what we, as you've said, we've been working on for 6 months. And we've gotten all of these volumes of red lines and X's outs and all that. And what we're seeing tonight is the end result, or the possible end result of that, of all that work. And I find it so much easier to read than what we had on those huge pages, with all the lines and how far over we had to go for each column. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a narrative of the matrix, basically.
Correct, and so much easier to read, in my opinion. And Mr. Cutler, when you were talking about having, that you didn't think that the public understood, I was in a meeting of the town council maybe 6 months ago, and I wish I could remember, I think it might have been about the Grange, where the people, someone said, as the speaker said, I don't think the people understand, or maybe they don't understand. There was a big wave of people saying, we understand, and I can guarantee you they did not know what that specific piece was about. But because special use permits have gotten stuck in so many people's craw, that when they hear it, they think that something special is being done for that person, whether it's you or the president, you know.
So Chairwoman Hilgast, if I may.
Yes, sir.
For starters, what I said was they may not understand that a large change to the zoning ordinance is being undertaken.
I see.
I'm not saying they don't understand the
Okay.
zoning, but
Right.
that this body and then the town council is undertaking a significant change to our zoning laws.
Thank you.
And I will say about readability and things like that, and I did a thesis on usability, and there's countless ways to clean that up and fix that.
Sure.
The difference of what we're seeing here, and it goes back a few months ago, we had the same discussion. If we want to discuss changing and cleaning up our zoning ordinance, that's one thing. That's a lofty project. Changing it, making it more readable, easier to understand, that's great. Well, that's not what's happening here. What we're doing is changing our restrictions on density and everything else that is becoming waiverable or SUPable or whatever we want to call it that wasn't previously. And that is a significant change to our zoning law. So, you know, you can stick it under the guise of we're not changing anything and we're just standardizing it, but that is not true at all. Because if we are making things waiverable that were not waiverable before, that is a substantial change to the zoning ordinance. I would say too that an effort undertaken to clean up our zoning ordinance and make it more readable that results in substantial changes in density restrictions and every other restriction that we have going away basically, or being available for exception, is a significant change to our zoning law. So, you know, there's a big difference between fixing something and making it more readable and changing the outcome. And I would say if we look at the history, you can say SUP's gotten somebody's craw, but if we look at the history of the use of SUPs for large-scale residential growth, there has been very little denial. There has been, you know, like the use of the term control, that the SUPs give us control, but they actually take away control if we had a definitive zoning law that was very clear to developers, and they didn't have to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks through the SUP process. Then we would have not found ourselves in those situations. So I'd say this approach of what we've, and this was kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning, this approach where we started a project of cleaning up our zoning ordinance, and now we're making decisions that affect density, home size, all of the permittable things that we currently control, and now we want to put them in the a case-by-case basis of control, that's not really control, that's case-by-case basis evaluation. And that will result in inconsistency year over year as this body and town council changes.
Chairwoman Hilligan, if I may continue.
Mr. Burr?
Yes. Yeah, it's not control, it's chaos. Let me try to explain this a different way. We'll take community conservation, okay, as an example. And we're going to put 8 waivers in there. You know, we're going to consider all these 8 waivers. Community conservation, okay, we're going to waive district size. Okay, that might be all right. Waiver of floor, ratio, building coverage. Waiver of landscape screening, open space, continuous open space. How does that apply to community conservation? I don't understand it. Then you have waiver of maximum building height. You have waiver of maximum density for residential uses. Why would a waiver such as this be put in the community conservation? That doesn't make, it's not adding up. Waiver of parking and loading. Waiver of yard requirements. Some of these things, across the board, they just don't make sense in certain zoning districts. They don't make sense. And I mean, if you're going to waive everything, if you're going to put all these 8 waivers in the community conservation, then anything, any of the other ordinances can end up in the community conservation. And it's no longer the community conservation, it's anything that you want to put there when you put in all these waivers.
Respectfully, Mr. Bride, some of those waivers would allow you to increase density so that you could have more green space, say in a community conservation area. So there's give and take on both of those sides.
But that implies you're going to build a residential area in a community conservation.
Have we seen from our citizens that there's a push for us to give more flexibility for developers to build more homes? I mean, I think we call it a SUP, we call it a waiver. It sounds like the IRS tax code where now it's just filled with loopholes. And now there's a loophole around every single regulation that we have. So it kills the integrity of our ordinance and effectively nullifies the ordinance because every aspect of the ordinance is open to waiver, and now we have to entertain every waiver. And I appreciate the nod towards creativity, but I haven't seen it I haven't seen it be proposed, and I think there's always a way to get things done. I mean, we've talked about the difficulty of a text amendment and how difficult that is. Well, it's that difficult for a reason. But if a developer was creative enough and had such a great idea, they could request that. But I would ask, this kind of begs the question, what is the benefit to our citizens of making this zoning ordinance less restrictive, more waiverable? What is the benefit to the populace of Smithfield for us to do that? I'm just not really sure I'm seeing it. We went from making it more readable and clean, and, we started, I think it was already started before I got here, but I'm thinking back to like the townhouse, clarifying what the townhouse duplex situation was, right? That made sense, right? Clean that up, it makes sense. Now anybody reads it, it makes sense, hopefully, right? But taking something that's messy and making it messy in a different appearance, but nullifying all our rules, I'm not seeing how it serves the citizens of our town.
Because a text amendment, when you do it to the ordinance, is a permanent change and it can't be reversed unless you reverse it as a reversal of a text amendment. Special use permits is a case-by-case basis, so it doesn't apply forward to any other developer. Any other developer that gets a text amendment now has it in place forever unless town council reverses it. SUP is a case-by-case basis. So it's not a permanent change to the ordinance.
Totally understand, and we've done both.
Yeah, we have, and that's why it's not consistent, and that's why we're asking for consistency, one way or the other. It's however the body sees it. Our body and the town council body is what's the most fair way to proceed. And you want to maintain that control. Otherwise, if you don't have that control, then things are going to get chaotic. If you look at, does the community, I didn't bring my stuff tonight because I didn't know we were getting a detailed discussion over all this, thought we were just going to kind of look at it. But is there a height requirement in the community, or is that a waiver? Do you have a waiver on there for the height on community conservation? Do they allow it?
It's residential building height of 35 feet.
Yeah, but is there a waiver for that? Is it checked off on that sheet?
As it currently exists, there is not a waiver for
Right.
height.
So if I wanted to build a classical colonial home and put a English basement in it and a 10-foot ceiling downstairs and a 10-foot ceiling upstairs and a 12-12 pitched roof, I'm over 35 feet and I can't build the house. So there's no way to get around that if we don't have a special use permit. And if I have a 10-acre community conservation piece of land and I want to build the house in the middle of my property, it's not going to affect anybody, why can't I build it at 35 feet? If you don't have a special use permit, I can't even entertain building what I want to build.
Don't disagree with that. However, I would say the due diligence work to write a zoning ordinance that's going to fit the most solutions would have more consistency than a lack of a zoning ordinance and everything goes through an SUP and becomes a case-by-case basis. Then the only consistency that will exist will be as long as the body remains the same. The one thing that is consistent, though, is our citizens saying, reduce, manage, slow growth.
But how
That's
does an
consistent.
SUP increase growth? How does it increase density?
Exactly. How does that change the density? How does it change the growth?
So the history of residential growth from Mallory Scott, the Greenwood Homes Project, and the cottages, and the Grange, every one of them has came with SUPs for growth in some form or fashion, either at the start or at the finish, and then they all leverage them to say, we want to build 1,200 homes in Mallory's Point, and it's by right for 300, and then a bunch of shuffling and discussion happens, and then they say, look, we're going to go down to 800. Look how nice we are. And so while that directly does not create that, the history of the performance of the Planning Commission and the Town Council is to approve those things, and the history of the electorate of the last few years is to stop approving those things and to slow and manage the residential growth. So I would say that does not directly create that, but our ability to encode management of our growth for our citizens is what our citizens desire.
I'll bring you the data on Mallory Point, but some of the statements you made are incorrect. Mallory Point does not have a special use permit for waiver of density. Their density is 1.7 houses per acre, well below the 3.5 that they asked for, or maybe 4, because I think they're in a cluster development. Their attached residential is up to 12 units. They're only at 6.7 units, so they're well below their density. I'll bring you next month the calculations that I did way back when. But when Mallory Point acquired their property, they rezoned approximately 160 acres originally that they bought in 2005 from community conservation to probably neighborhood residential at that point. Then, don't remember all the net developable acreage, but roughly they applied for 155 homes or something on that property is what they were approved for roughly in that time. But had they built out to full density at 3.5 houses per acre times 166, you do the math on that, but it was around 500 homes, plus or minus. Then they acquired the property in front of Wellington Estates. Then they acquired more property towards Gatling Point, and then they acquired the property, what's the name of the property? The farm, Scott Farm. That was all zoned community conservation at 1 unit per acre. Multiply that out by the other 180, 170 acres they had. Their density, as by right, without ever becoming before the Planning Commission at that time, they were able to build approximately 650 to 700 homes without ever coming before us, because that's what they had by right, previous zoning in 2005, and then acquired the property as community conservation. That's what they were allowed to build by right. I'll get you the exact numbers because I got the calculations at home. That's what they allowed for. So they were in the 600, 650 range, plus or minus. They came in at 1,200. That didn't fly. They reduced to 800. We're going to criticize 800 versus 650 over a 500-acre development. That was close enough, plus all their other concessions, but they never applied for a waiver of density, or they couldn't apply because it didn't exist, but they never exceeded density anywhere in their calculations. Had they rezoned their complete acreage to neighborhood residential, they could have built close to 2,000 homes by right if they had rezoned everything to neighborhood residential. If you look at the X number of developable acres times 3.5, they had a tremendous amount of houses they could have built, and they settled at 812. I think that was a pretty good bargain. I think it was a pretty good reason. And so 812 homes is a lot. I also had the calculations, but Mallory Point also owned 10% of the town's area, land area, square miles, square footage, whatever you want to call it. They owned a lot of property. And I'll challenge you to find areas, I would love to count the density up along Magruder and Wilson Street and see those homes and what the density are in those homes over the acreage and extrapolate that out. But Wellington Estates is 1.7 houses per acre. Nobody's ever complained about that, saying it's too dense and we don't need homes and things like that, when Mallory Point's the exact same size as Wellington Estates.
I would love to look at that data, but the real takeaway I have from what you said is that they could have done something that would have been less favorable than what they did, and if they could have changed their zoning, then they could have done it by right. So to me, that's even more reason for us to have a more robust zoning ordinance that would prevent that and give us control over preventing it instead of trying to exert control over what excesses people want, developers want. I would rather have control on the front end than try to control the excess that they desire.
Well, that's how you look at it, but the special use permit, they never even applied for density, so that wasn't even a discussion item. What they applied for were stupid stuff like get rid of the RV parking that they didn't do. They asked for non-continuous cluster space development, special use permit. They asked for, I forget them all. I had them all written down on a piece of paper of what they asked for, but they only asked for 4 special use permits and 2 waivers of something. But it came out to 6 things that they asked for, but they were all trivial, what they asked for. But the problem was everybody said, 6. Oh my God, look at all the special consideration you're giving them, when it was dumb stuff. I'll bring it next month. Well, I'll bring this back up for discussion next month while I have the numbers in front of me. And I'll give you a copy of all the numbers and all the waivers and special use permits that they had. And I'll also talk about all the concessions that they had, all the road improvements they did, all the RPI changes, and also the conservation stuff that they did as well.
Thank you, Doctor. We seem to be going round and round about this. Mr. Cutler, you had said you would like to have some sort of consultant involved in this effort.
So if we are, I would like to make a distinction. So if we're cleaning up readability and taking our zoning ordinance that we have and making improvements to it that don't change the substance of the zoning, I think that's one task, that is an honorable task and is great to be done. But if we're making a wholesale change to our zoning ordinance that is going to change the outcome of future proposals to this body and to the town council in a significant fashion, then I think that at a minimum we should probably be involved in the town council and seeing, is a drastic change warranted and desired, and if it is, then should we go at it with our full-throated effort and put our finances and into it instead of it seemed like we pulled a string and now we're making a blanket. So I would just like to differentiate that, an improvement by a rewrite or substantial change.
Understood. Would you care to make a motion for a joint work session with council about this item to see if it's something that everybody wants to pursue, or what's your end game?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. Yeah.
But I think I'm struggling with this because I can hear what both sides are saying. Going from 380 to 180 or 200, I think is very valuable. I think the question we're stuck on is whether we want to have lots of things that they can ask for a special use permit, or we want to have a very small number of things that we could use that you could apply for as a special use permit. So we're not land use professionals, and I don't know if you can get a consultant, but have a consultant come in and say, communities your size, you're better off having, a bunch of strict rules and drawing the line there, or you're better off having a whole bunch of special use permits to allow you the flexibility to do. I mean, that's the question. The question isn't the 380 to the other, and that. I'm afraid if we get a consultant in, they're going to look at all 380 and what do we miss and that and the other. And I don't really have a problem with the reduction other than, as Charles was saying, that there are more things that we can waiver now. And is that good or bad? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, and I think part of where we could maybe get some help, or we could recircle ourselves as an outcome of that joint meeting if we didn't have some kind of work session or something, is to, what is our objective? As I said at the start, the initial objective was said to me in this meeting room was to clean up a few things in our zoning ordinance and, fix a couple things. And now we're changing, or we're potentially making waiverable everything in our zoning ordinance. So we need to have, the problem that I have with that is that we make those single decisions in a small vacuum and we're not working towards an objective, right? We're not working towards a goal. The goal before was to clean up the ordinance, update the ordinance, but now we're making changes to the ordinance without having an objective, without having a mission, right? And I'll tell you, the vision statement, the mission statement or vision statement for the town council was on people-centric, citizen-centric governance. And I'm paraphrasing, but so if we are making large decisions, we need to do that from a citizen-centric standpoint, with input from them, as well as, I'm losing my point, but that has objectives that are designed and thought out to meet the will and desires of the citizens. I think that is what we're not working with right now.
But the goal and objective is control and flexibility in the setting of where the state government appears to be taking away that control and not allowing us to have restrictions over what we think is best for our community and our township.
Well, if they do that, anything we do will be a moot point. It'll be regardless. I agree with that, and I hope that doesn't happen, but the objective that I recall when I asked about this was not, because I recanted on that, and I said if we're going to talk about changing density, that's a different discussion than if we're talking about fixing wording and clarity in our zoning. That's a different thing than changing standards.
Well, and I don't know that any standards changed, did they? I mean, the purpose and intent of all of these are exactly the same as of each one of these zoning areas are exactly the same as they were. And density didn't change in any, proposed density didn't change that I'm seeing. Did you see it?
No. What's changing is the ability to waiver every aspect of the zoning.
Certain uses.
Including density,
Yeah.
but everything.
Which to me tells me I, as a planning commissioner, have these same guidelines, these same door stops, the same rules, and everything to follow as I did before, because those numbers haven't changed. I'm giving myself the opportunity for someone to come in here with an innovative idea, an innovation that we haven't seen before, a way to attack a problem that isn't already prescribed, but it gives us the opportunity to look at that and consider that as a body. And anything that's coming in as a SUP is going to have a public comment period. So you want it to be controlled by the public and you want them to have their voice. They have their voice. That's how we get our voice, is through that special use permit. But I've worked in an industry for my entire life that is controlled by rules and regulations, and the ability for us to innovate in that sector is very difficult because it's real hard to get around all those rules and waivers, and how do you go do that? How do you find a way to do something different with those rules and everything? Yep, they're put there for a reason, but you have this body to go review those changes. You got the guidelines set up, and it gives you the opportunity. So to me, I thought it was a good thing that we were standardizing basically the wording across all the zones and providing that opportunity across all the different zones in order to be able to see whatever innovative products would come in, or they can meet the standard and not have to come before us at all, and they move forward. And like I said, I don't think we see anything new and different if we don't have that opportunity. So you're going to get stuff, like you said, yep, meets the standard, but I don't know you're going to see anything different than what gets put everywhere else. So.
And just to Vice Chair Dr. Bevan's point, I don't know that you'll find a consultant that will tell you either way, because your two issues are essentially two schools of thought, how you're approaching the problem. And so I'm not sure that, I mean, that's something that's ultimately up to Planning Commission and Town Council, where you guys want to go with it.
Yeah, I just thought someone would be able to come in and, in an advisory capacity, say, you know, the 5 towns or counties that are near your size have taken this approach and it's been a disaster, or they've taken the other approach. And you're right, there may not be somebody who can do that, but if they said, everybody that's got all these special permits, it's been a disaster for them, that would be useful to know. If they said, no, special use permits allow you to control, to have the flexibility to let people come in, that's all I was looking for. Most of the people here and on town council are good friends of mine. None of us are experts in this. And so having someone who knows a whole lot, who has broader experience, what's worked across the state, what's worked across, you know, towns of your size, and then you can decide how that, you know, it's still a matter of opinion, but, you know, my opinion might be swayed if special use permits were a disaster in Lynchburg, for example, you know, or they allowed Lynchburg to really tailor their development to the land that they have. And maybe that doesn't exist.
Can we look at the project that we looked at in item number 6 on our agenda? It comes back before us because they're in the ECO guideline, right? So therefore, we have to review it again before building materials and that, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But for me, having that trash dumpster on the corner of that property, to me, is a exclusionary thing for me to say, I wouldn't vote for your project, because I think putting a trash dumpster on the corner of your main thing is dumb. But I granted them the special use permit tonight without the leverage of saying that trash dumpster better move. So I lost my leverage by approving the special use permit on the dumpster. Now, I may not lose it on the ECO. However, our special use permit is what gives us the permission to say, if you don't move that dumpster, I'm not giving you the special use permit. We probably should not have voted on the special use permit until after we see their overall plans, because the special use permit is what gives us the leverage to say, if their building, their Tex-Mex restaurant is typically a modern building, and if we don't like the modern building that's going to come through, where is our leverage to say,
To make it look like the Wendy's.
to make it look like Wendy's?
Yeah.
We just lost that leverage tonight by approving the special use permit now and not in the end. Am I correct?
Not necessarily, because you have the ECO review at that point.
Well, but our special, you know, they're going to come back saying, we're golden, we're good, but, you know, we should have been a whole lot more harsh on them with the special use permit, but you know, we don't have renderings, we don't have what you really want to do here. You know, we should have probably, you know, that's the point of the special use permit, is to get that at the end, not at the beginning. You
But
know,
it
we
was
needed
just
to
for the
see what they do.
drive-throughs, just for the drive-throughs, and not for anything else, not the building or the landscaping or where the trash dumpster would be. So my thought is we did approach it correctly
Well,
tonight.
I mean, we
But
probably approach it
that's-
correctly, but I'm just saying we lose our leverage when we give them the
Okay.
special use permit up front. It needs to be approved all as a package. It's a whole package.
I
It's
see.
not, I just want to do this, I want to do this. It's why do you want to do this? Why do you need the exception? I know why they need the exception for drive-through. That's not the issue here, but why do you need the exception? How does this relate to the overall project and what's around it? It's everything. It's taking it all into consideration. We don't want to give away the special use permit at the beginning. We want that to be our last vote, in my opinion. It's one of the last votes in the process, or it's part of the whole process of this is what we want and this is what we want to see. But, you know, we'll see how it comes back with the ECO. But that's the whole point of that special use permit is that's our teeth. That's all we've got to hang our hat on at the end of the day. If they're outside of the ECO guideline, whatever they submit to Mrs. Clary is automatically approved.
Right, but the ECO guidelines is our teeth. We have that for every entrance corridor in town. We don't need SUPs because we have the entrance corridor overlay guidelines.
Well, I got you, but there might be a point, what's our guideline, 500 feet? But if they're after 500 feet, we don't have any more say anymore.
We could change that. I mean, you know, there are multiple ways to control things, but without working towards an objective, then it's like we're just making change for change's sake. Yet our citizens do want change to happen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's your pleasure on this discussion item? Do we move forward with the public hearing? Do you want a joint session with town council to work on this? Do you want to investigate the possibility of having consultant advise us on this? What's your pleasure?
Well, do you feel like presenting all of this as a public hearing and explaining our rationale is the way to go versus, and that way when a project actually comes for attached residential with the items that have been approved or waivers could be granted, that's when the public is really going to get their knowledge of the project. Just an overall global, I think, might be more difficult for them to say, yes, that is a good way to go, or no, it's not. If they understand what the rationale is behind what we've got or what we've been working on, I don't know, I feel like that's, I don't want to say sufficient, but I think that would bring it to their minds what we're asking them about.
I think we should rope in town council. I think we should do a joint meeting because there's a lot of people on town council who are, you know, long in the tooth and been doing this a period of time. And we need to understand, I don't think we're ready to take it to the public because we don't agree with what to do. So, you know, if town council said, you can do whatever you want, but we're going to do it this way, or if they had some different insight, I'd rather hear about it now, before than after. So I'm not too worried about the 380 to 180 number, but the whole question of special use permits, lots or few, then that would be worthwhile sitting down with town council, and the public can be there, and say we're talking about the future of the town, and what's the philosophy of the best way to move forward. So I would make a motion that we set up a joint session with town council, specifically discuss how about how to apply special use permits liberally or conservatively.
Okay, there's been a motion for a joint meeting with town council. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second, Ms. Claire, recall.
If logistically I can just make the suggestion that staff meets with council, presents the material to council so that council is on the same
So
level
they're
of
up to speed?
knowledge
Okay.
As the planning commission before we have that joint meeting. I think that would be very productive.
Will that be at a regular town council meeting?
Yes, if I
Okay.
can present it to them, so that they have the material, they have time to digest it,
Okay.
because we've been working on it for months, and this would be the first time
Okay.
that they'd be seeing it.
Fair enough.
But I think also prudent is if you merged items 12, 13, and 14 on your land use map, and certain things changed as a result of that merging, that needs to be highlighted as well, because we're acting like we're just changing these 8 things. These 8 things are not the only things that changed when that 360 consolidated.
Right, we'd
Yeah.
have to bring them up to speed with all the
So they need
documents
to make
that
sure
we.
they realize it's not just the 8 things we're asking for, it's the 45 things that were asked for by the whole consolidation of everything. And so, we're not so worried about did some of these things change in the industrial part and this, that, and the other, but it's the whole change, not just these 8. It's the whole picture.
Fair enough. Clear as mud.
Can I call for question?
Yes, please.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yeah.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilligas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item number 10, also a discussion item repealing Article 3SN. Do we have staff report?
Yes, thank you. We believe that this Article 3N, which is our Environmental Conservation District, was actually implemented as a zoning district prior to the Chesapeake Bay and the floodplain. And so it was actually created as a zoning option. So we have parcels across town that are dual zoned. They're zoned community conservation and this environmental conservation district. The problem with dual zone parcels is it's very difficult to determine where one zoning ends and where one begins. Also, some of the items that you could apply for in this zoning district, we no longer allow because of the Chesapeake Bay overlay and because of the floodplain overlay. Again, this is why we believe that this was presented as a zoning district. It probably should have been an overlay as opposed to an actual zoning district. There are 2 situations. One where it's a dual zoned parcel, they would be consolidated into that underlining zoning district. Mostly this affects neighborhood, residential, and community conservation. If there is a situation where it was solely zoned, the EC, that would then revert back to community conservation. And so, again, this is, for example, in the environmental conservation by special use permit, you can put up accessory buildings and uses. However, we do not allow accessory buildings through our floodplain and through our Chesapeake Bay. So it's an antiquated zoning district that is a second project. We're just clearing it up, and so we're proposing to repeal it. This would be an ongoing project because we would then have to rezone all of the properties that are dual zoned. But again, this is at the very infancy stage of this project. We just wanted to bring it to Planning Commission as a discussion item to make sure that they were on board with us continuing to put forth efforts into this project.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, where are these maps from?
These are actually the old zoning maps that we used only because it's much easier to see the green and the yellow, which distinguish the EC from the NR. Our new official zoning map does not have the EC. It's not as easy to tell where the EC is located.
So is this James River, Payne River, or is this Cypress Creek, or where are we looking at?
It's all of them. Pretty much anything where there's water, it's zoned EC. So even out on Pole Road, all the way across town. But again, that is already covered under our overlays for our floodplain and our Chesapeake Bay.
And that's what I wanted to see. When I was looking at this, I wanted to find the maps of those, and I didn't before this meeting. I wanted to see how those overlays, the flood zone and the Chesapeake Bay overlays fitted on this map. And it is when it's this small, you take out these small portions, it's hard to tell where they actually are in the town. I know it's in the general area there, yeah, it's not Moonfield, but near the Pagan River, that general area back there.
So this is just a discussion to make sure that staff can move forward with this project before we dive in and spend staff time. So you would have, once this is actually going live, you would have full maps. It would be much more detailed. Again, we're just touching the surface of this project.
Does the EC district,
I know.
does the EC district have written verbiage like all the other ones? Like
Yes,
community conservation and
It's
everything?
3N.
Yes.
But we don't have that before us, do we?
It's on the desktop. We have the zoning ordinance saved on the desktop. It's short. I could read it to you if you'd like me to.
Please.
Oh, sure. So the purpose and intent, the town of Smithfield is categorized by abundant water areas, tidal flats, wetlands, and marshes that are irreplaceable natural resources. These are deemed essential to remain in their natural state to both ecological systems of local tidal rivers and the unusual natural and aesthetic environment of the town. The purpose of the EC Environmental Conservation District is to preserve and maintain the undeveloped character of these areas, to protect the waters from inappropriate obstruction to waterborne commerce, recreation, to guard against hazard and damage resulting from periodic flooding, to promote and enhance environmental conservation activities, and in general to provide for reasonable and harmonious use of these special land and water areas included within the district. In addition to these regulations, the district incorporates land which are governed by the FPO and the CBO. Permitted uses would be governmental activity on wetlands owned or leased by the Commonwealth of Virginia or political subdivision thereof. Number 2, non-commercial catwalks, piers, boathouses, boat shelters, fences, duck lines, wildlife management shelters, footbridges, observation decks and shelters, and other similar structures, provided that such structures are constructed on pilings so as to permit the reasonably unobstructed flow of the tide and preserve the natural contour of the marsh. 3, cultivation and harvesting of shellfish and worms for bait, commercial fishing and trapping, non-commercial outdoor recreational activities, including hiking, boating, hunting, horseback riding, swimming, skeet and trap shooting, shooting preserves, commercial and non-commercial trapping, fishing, and shell fishing. 5, cultivation and harvesting of agricultural or horticultural products, grazing and hay operations for number 6. 7, conservation, repletion, and research activities of the VMRC, the VIMC, Commission of Game and Inland Fisheries, and other related conservation agencies. Sorry.
I got it.
But again, these areas are governed by the FPO and the CB, the Chesapeake Bay. We just think that we believe this should have been an overlay, and instead it was a zoning district, and so we do have dually zoned parcels
Right.
throughout town that we would like to, anytime we encounter this, we always try to make it one
Sure.
or the other where it's not a blend.
Right.
Do you have an estimate of how many parcels this affects?
I think it was 300, just over 300.
386.
So again, this is a massive
Yeah.
project in the
Yeah.
background, but before we get too far into it, we just wanted to bring it to Planning Commission as a discussion item.
And all 300 that you mentioned, they're along the water?
Correct.
And the other point here is, the flood zone overlay states, and it's, the way it's written, it's more restrictive than the EC and the CC ordinances, the zones, how they're written. The flood zone and the Chesapeake Bay overlay, they're much more restricted. They have much more strength than these EC and CC zoning ordinances.
Yeah, I don't think we lose any teeth by getting rid of this.
Those two have enough teeth already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to see the overlay to make sure it covered those areas.
Okay, so we don't need any action, it's just a discussion item, so you know what's going on.
Correct, thank
But-
you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but the things that are allowed by this ordinance, I mean, are there things that are allowed by this that then wouldn't be allowed that are in any of those areas that are,
I don't think so. And a lot of it is outside of our control through VMRC, that it would be permitted through that agency.
There are some things that's allowed, but the requirements are much more stringent. It does have more teeth. The
Yep.
Chesapeake Bay and the flood zone zone overlay, they have much more teeth than the CC and the EC.
oh, trust
Much
me,
more.
I know.
Okay, moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 11 is approval of the December 9th meeting minutes. Are there any changes or additions? To have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the question, please, Ms. Blair.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
I abstain.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hillegas?
Yes. Very good. Item number 12 is the director's report. What captivating news do you have for us this evening?
Yes, hopefully next month, we will be going live on that Civic Plus website for the agenda. It will be the same link, the same login each time, and it will take you to the portal that will have your agenda. So you won't have to, every time you click on that same link, it'll take you to the next newest and
Oh,
greatest.
okay. Nice.
This is going to be easier than the login we have now.
That's what we hope. Anything else for the good of the cause, ladies and gentlemen? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention.